There is no doubt that trains and movies go well together. Ever since the early days of motion film, trains can play an important part of any motion picture, whether it be genres like action drama, murder mystery, science fiction, and even comedy, just to name a few. But while I have shown many examples of trains featured in many different forms or genres and films mediums, there's something that is very completely lacking in any railway-themed movie, and that is the locomotive itself not being the main character. This subject has been on my mind for a very long time. While I tried to reach out to other channels to express and try to gather others' opinions on the subject, no one seems to want to collaborate. So my viewers, I'm going to try and tackle this subject alone, and hopefully I can make it as interesting as possible for you to enjoy. While I'll try my best to keep all information as accurate as possible, but without a third party to check over my work, errors are still likely going to occur during my presentation. Also, this video is made in August 2022. Any information about train movies being made after this point in time were not currently known by me during the production of this video. With that all said, let's get started. This whole presentation all started when I noticed this Twitter post commenting about a scene from Disney's Planes. And it made me wonder, why hasn't one about trains been made before? Or a train in general been given the main starring role before? Now, before we continue, I would like to set some basic rules to follow. And that is, the locomotive needs to be sentient and be able to communicate to the audience freely without interference. I'm not saying that a train or vehicle without humanoid features will not work. Either the engine, Jim Button's Emma, and Disney's Herbie the Love Bug are good examples of what can be done. But to simplify this video overall topic, I'm going to state, for now, that the locomotive can't be a non-living entity that someone else needs to help drive the narrative. But don't worry, fans of Ivor the Engine and Emma, I will do my best to cover my thoughts on these two characters later on. It is amazing how so many animation studios that, for nearly 100 years now, can make movies about almost anything. Animals, robots, toys, emotions, video games, appliances, emoticons, and I haven't even scratched the surface on the subjects that have been covered. However, when it comes to theatrical silver screen motion pictures where a train is the starring role, seems to be very lacking. Now, don't get me wrong, trains have starred in many animated motion pictures on the big screen, but a majority of them are just there to help transport the main characters to their destinations, and don't really contribute much besides that. In the past 20 years alone, as of this video, there have been so many TV shows about trains, yet there's only been 2 animated movies that have ever focused on them. Thomas and the Magic Railroad in 2000, and to an extent, The Polar Express in 2004. I'm also not going to count any of the Thomas hour-long specials as theatrical releases. There was supposed to be an attempt to get Ivor the Engine onto the big screen too, but there's sadly nothing came of it. I would also like to quickly mention Emma from Jim Button. While 2 movies do exist, and she plays an important role in the plots, she is still mainly used just to transport the main characters around. I know many of you are going to say, Thomas the Tank Engine is the movie star in his own film. However, I have one small problem with this answer. Even though the movie is called Thomas and the Magic Railroad, Thomas himself is only on screen for less than 12 minutes. Credit to ThomasFan261 for making a video on this. That's not even 20% of the film's 84-minute running time. Granted, while this data is probably not 100% accurate, I do feel that the majority of the movie does focus more on the human characters and their struggles. When you think about it, the movie revolves around Mr. Conductor. He is the one we follow more as he struggles to find the source of his magic. We also follow the other human side plot as Lily is trying to reconnect with her grandfather. And in actuality, Mr. Conductor is the indirect reason Lily ends up on the island of Sodor. Thomas, on the other hand, doesn't really have a problem to deal with in this movie, and most of the time he is transporting the other cast around just to help keep the plot moving. Sure, he and the other engines have Diesel tend to contend with, but they don't seem to be quite in a panic about his presence on their railway, even chuckling when the Diesel gets caught in his own mishaps. Diesel 10's threatening role seemed to be more like a troublemaker than a major threat to the engines, and I'm deeply aware that this was the main intention of the original script, and that the real threat was a human, not a train. Since then, we had one cancelled attempt back in 2011, and a current one supposedly being directed by Mark Forrester. Sorry, I need to pause here. It's been 2 years now since the announcement, and there has not been a single bit of updated news on this movie. Even Mattel's other popular franchise Barbie is gaining more traction, and the production on that one also started roughly at the same time. Okay, moving on. The Polar Express I sadly can't count since, for one, the locomotive is not sentient, and two, the movie focuses more on the hero boy's perspective. Like I said earlier, the train itself is mainly used to help get the main characters to their destination. Even the behind the scenes extras on the DVD don't even have any mention of the locomotive or its history during the production, which is very disappointing since they did go to the trouble of basing it on a real life locomotive in America, which would have been a great educational segment. And speaking of America, let's move on to my next topic. It is well known that Walt Disney had a deep interest in trains ever since he was young. Even many of his animators, Ward Kimball and Ollie Johnston being perfect examples, were all railway enthusiasts from the very beginning days of the company. You could say that Disney was built on trains, which is kinda true. Walt Disney built his first theme park just so he could construct a railway around it, and even many of the attractions are train-related rides of sorts. But never in the many years of Walt Disney, when he was alive or long after, has there ever been an attempt to give a locomotive a leading role in their movie. The closest we had was Casey Jr. in Dumbo, but 80 years later, there have been no known attempts to try. I can't count movies like The Lone Ranger or The Great Locomotive Chase, as neither film are about sentient locomotives, even though trains do play a big part in these movies. Even John Lasseter, the director of Pixar's Cars, a highly popular franchise for the company, is also a railway enthusiast, and even owns the 3-foot gauge locomotive once previously belonged to Ollie Johnston. Both companies continue to create animated movies where trains do make small appearances, but they still remain more of a prop than an actual character for the story. However, it still remains the question, with two companies with such strong history with railways, has there still never been a single attempt to make one? I wish there was some way to get in contact with a representative for each company to get their perspective on the difficulties to get a locomotive the time to shine. But as we all know, big companies just don't have time to answer such questions for the average person. So we can agree many other forms of transportation have been made the stars of their own movies with some form of success. Pixar's Cars and Disney's Planes are the prime examples. And I know many will point out that the other remaining, like boats, haven't had a chance to shine yet either, but let's focus on trains for now. So why is it such a struggle to have a script about a locomotive being the main character? Well, it all comes down to my next topic. Are the Thomas specials ruining the chances for an independent train-themed motion picture? In some ways, maybe. Thomas, of course, is the most popular railway franchise to this day, and for any rival animation studio to compete, it's going to be tough to bring something unique to the big screen. And as mentioned before, there are a lot of train show franchises and unique train characters out there that could possibly try if the studios were dedicated enough. But sadly, the many Thomas specials have started to highlight the struggles to make a unique movie plot for a locomotive to venture with for a full-length movie. Let me explain. I have watched Thomas and the Magic Railroad and the other 14 specials, some great, some terrible, and I've noticed some repetitive plot points in all 15 lengthy stories. Now, keep in mind these are not valid reasons as for why a train movie can't work. But certain plot points seem to turn up quite often in these specials, which makes me question what else can be done to be different. Number 1. There is always some kind of accident happening on or near a bridge. It seems the limitations for what kind of obstacles a train can face on their rails seems to be a major factor to any of these stories, and for some reason broken bridges seem to be the majority to go to for a plot device. Even Casey Jr., the Magic Roundabout, and the two Little Engine That Could animated adaptations also have this same trope placed somewhere within their films as an obstacle for the train character to face. I did want to include the Polar Express with this bridge trope, but since it's never fully said that there was supposed to be a bridge over the frozen lake it glides over, it's really hard to tell if this counts. That, and the train is not sentient. Surprisingly, other similar obstacles, like blockages on the line, are not as common. Number 2. An engine is either broken down or sustains damage to itself. Apart from one special, this plot device is almost in every story like the bridges. Some accidents are serious, others are only quite minor. Granted, this gives a valid reason why Thomas, or another character, has to take over the broken down engine's job and drive the story forward, although in some cases it's not directly related to the plot. The Little Engine That Could also starts off with this plot point too. Finally, the lack of freedom of movability. Unlike other transportations, which can go left, right, up, down, forwards and backwards, are naturally free to pick their own paths of travel, trains are sadly railroaded to their tracks, and can only go where their rails can take them either forwards or backwards. The only time they can change direction off their path is at a junction point, which is normally controlled by outside forces and not the trains themselves. So unless you are perfectly fine for your train character to go trackless and behave more like a road vehicle, they are limited to what obstacles they can face wise on their tracks. So, what current works would be possible to adapt? Well, I guess it would be really hard to tell, as it would be impossible to go through and evaluate every known cartoon train out there in a single video. So, I'm going to list the current ones that I believe are the most well known. And if I do miss your favourite, I do apologise in advance. The Little Engine That Could has already been adapted many times. The most famous two is the one that's 30 minutes long, and the other that's 1 hour long. And to their credit, have successfully stretched a very basic story about a train needing to get over a mountain to deliver its cargo of toys and food is quite an achievement. The 30-minute adaptation follows the main story very closely, with some extra drama to pad it out. The hour-long, best way to describe it, follows along the lines of what Disney did in adapting the Snow Queen story to become Frozen. The hour special took the basic concept and made a completely different story, while still trying to maintain the overall moral of thinking positive. As much as I would love to see some kind of adaptation of The Little Engine That Could to the silver screen, the two current attempts have proved just how far one can go with a very basic story. Speaking of trains chanting "I think I can," let's move on to our next contender. So what about Casey Jr. as a main character for a film? It is amazing how much presence he has in the theme park since his small debut in the Dumbo movie over 80 years ago. From toys, theme park rides, water park attractions, parade floats, food containers, and other collectible merchandise. He's also cameoed in several other Disney properties, including a non-living version in the live-action Dumbo movie. So why not take the opportunity to give Casey Jr. his own movie? Disney could easily do a creative retelling of the famous railroad engineer legend Casey Jones's career with a steam locomotive. Some will probably disagree on such a retelling, but let's be honest here. We are talking about Disney. They are well known to retelling stories from the original source material. I would like to do a theoretical story pitch on a concept that could work for Casey Jr., tying him with the Casey Jones legend and his eventual history with the circus. But to tell an entire story plot will have to be done in a separate video for another day. This is also something I would like to do with the abandoned The Adventures of Thomas movie's basic plot synopsis, if I ever get a chance to. However, the story would focus probably more on the child than the blue tank engine. Ivor the Engine. I would like to quickly bring up this character, since he too was once going to become a movie star. Ivor the Engine is an interesting character. I can see the potential of his stories being adapted, mainly the one involving Idris the Dragon, trying to avoid getting nationalized, or maybe even a plot of con artists trying to exploit his musical talent. However, I can also see the troubles of trying to get him onto the screen due to how little exposure worldwide he has over the past 20 years now, unless you happen to live in the UK or Wales. So, if we want a movie that somehow focuses almost purely on trains, how about our next contender? Starlight Express, worked upon by the well-known English composer of musical theatre, Andrew Lloyd Webber, is a Cinderella-like story about a steam engine wanting to compete in a grand international race in the hope to impress a beautiful passenger coach, and earn some respect from the more modern locomotives, all told through the eyes of a child's toy trains. To those of you who don't know, Andrew grew up reading the books about Thomas the Tank Engine, and dreamed of bringing the plucky little blue tank engine to life. However, several setbacks forced him to cancel, so rather than giving up, he reworked his railway passion into Starlight Express. Quick fun fact, Starlight Express premiered in 1984, the same year Thomas the Tank Engine and his friends first appeared on UK television. Personally, I believe Starlight Express has good potential. So far, it's the only candidate from which a complete story is ready to go. It just basically needs to be translated more to a movie script form. And telling the story through animation would be the best possible outcome, especially with all the special effects that would be required and applied to heighten the overall experience. And if you still need the cast to be humans to help convey certain emotions and dance to routine scenes, then why not make it a way that the costumes can transform the cast into more realistic trains for the animated segments when they are racing and move about in long distance. Maybe similar to Transformers, but far less robotic. So why no attempt at a musical screen translation? Many of Andrew Lloyd Webber's musicals have been translated into motion picture of sorts, in some cases more than once. But Starlight Express, for whatever reason, has never been touched upon. I personally believe that if the recent attempt at Cats was somehow successful, Starlight Express would have been one of the next movies to be adapted. Again, we don't know. I personally wish we could write to Andrew and hear his thoughts about the subject, but he doesn't seem to be interested in talking about trains. But maybe we don't need to. If you ever want to see what the closest we could get to a Starlight Express movie, look no further than the Thomas special, The Great Race. It too follows a similar plotline, a small locomotive wanting to enter a big competition against many other countries, and all told with musical numbers sewn throughout the movie. As much as I would like to think one has somehow influenced the other, that's probably not the case. Finally, we come to the most famous one of them all. Thomas the Tank Engine is the most difficult to add something new, as we have already talked about how he has already been in one movie and 14 specials. The Blue Tank Engine has basically done almost anything imaginable with a train. Multiple times, Thomas and sometimes his friends have found missing engines, lost treasures or artifacts, hidden towns, unknown lands and locations, and Thomas himself has also been almost everywhere around the world, and so many races and chase scenes. It feels like there's very little that can be done to tell something new and different for the Blue Tank Engine. So final thoughts. I know I have rambled on for quite a bit and have only covered a small handful of possible solutions compared to the vast amounts of material out there, but it would be too time consuming to try and cover reasons for every cartoon train out there in the one video. So to sum up, will we ever see a new motion picture silver screen animated movie about a sentient train going off to the world on an adventure? In part of me I really hope so, but on the other hand, with all the things I have discussed, I seriously doubt it. With the current list of future animated movies coming out in the near future, it is very more doubtful again. That is not to say we should give up. We were very lucky to get the Thomas and the Magic Railroad movie to begin with, as according to sources, Britt Alcroft tried at least 2 times before with very little success in financial backing. But to be fair, one of those attempts, according to sources, also focused more on Mr. Conductor than our favourite little Blue Tank Engine. If you have managed to survive this very long video on me rambling on a subject that I've been wanting to express for quite some time, thank you for sticking around with me. And if you do have any disagreements with any of the information I have presented within this video, please, I encourage you to make your own video countering my arguments on my thoughts. As I said from the very start, all the information I have provided in this video are only my personal thoughts. I would love to hear what you all have to say to help prove my details wrong. So until next time my viewers, yours in Steam, Ausrail Animations.